Hey everybody, it's Mr. Wagstaff. Crazy stuff to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about the atomic bomb and how close was Hitler to getting the atomic bomb. We're going to talk about American production, and we're going to talk about the Battle of Stalingrad, a single battle where almost 2 million people die in a single battle and fundamentally change the direction of the history of Earth. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. So today, we need to start talking about this thing called the atomic bomb. It is a commonly known thing in society. Everybody, I would assume everybody has heard of atomic weapons. Let's start with the story because it's going to come out in World War II. Let's start from the beginning on this. This man right here is very famous. If you don't recognize his face, probably a lot of you do. If you don't, completely fine. His name is actually more recognizable than his face, and he has a pretty recognizable face. This is Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein is a genius. He is a physicist. All right. Now, the story with Albert Einstein is a very interesting one. So, Albert Einstein is German. All right, he was born in Germany. He is a genius physicist in Germany. Hitler loves scientists because he loves science and stuff. So you would think Albert Einstein would have been one of Hitler's top scientists. All right, he's not, and the reason is it's because Albert Einstein is Jewish. In Kristallnacht, when Hitler goes through and tells all the Jewish people to leave and trashes all their businesses, there's actually a publication that came out because Albert Einstein was well known in Germany as a physicist. That with a magazine came out with Albert Einstein on the cover with basically saying, we're coming after you individually. There's a bounty on his head to kill this man in Germany because he was Jewish. I mean, you can't make a lot of this stuff. It's crazy. So Albert Einstein obviously flees Germany. A lot of Jewish people couldn't. But Albert Einstein, being a well-known physicist, found his way out. He still had to live in like a little shack in England for a while. And like World War II is like getting started. And he actually flees to America. And he will actually become a naturalized citizen in the United States by 1940. All right, even before Pearl Harbor that we had talked about yesterday. So, Albert Einstein, a scientist from Germany, how does he play a role here? Well, Albert Einstein knows all the people that he works with there in Germany, and he's been in contact with them and knows the stuff that they have figured out. He realizes they figured out a way to split atoms. I'm not going to try to over-science this because I want to really make myself look like a fool. But scientists in Germany, after Albert Einstein had left, figured out how to split atoms and create a bunch of energy. And the full-on belief is that this new science will be used to create atomic weapons. Albert Einstein knows this immediately. He says, "Ruh-roh, like it's a great discovery, but the problem is they're going to use this for bad stuff." So Albert Einstein, understanding like what they were able to figure out, he can basically recreate it again, like the science aspect of it, because knowing that it works, it's easier to figure out something that is going to work. So he actually famously is going to write a letter to FDR to tell him, hey, Hitler has new science, and he might be making an atomic bomb. So Albert Einstein, a citizen, just writes a letter to the FDR at the time and says, this is what we are afraid of. Hitler, and Albert Einstein knows Hitler's a bad guy. I mean, he's Jewish. He's seen the full evilness of him. So to prevent this horribleness from being real life, Albert Einstein, what you see here in the top left, writes a letter, very famous letter, to FDR saying, hey man, we got to do something about this. FDR 100% agrees. So he gets basically the science help he needs from Albert Einstein, and FDR is going to turn around and basically see if America can make this bomb first. Because there is a full-on belief here that if Hitler gets the atomic bomb, he will use it, and he absolutely would have. I mean, it would probably been used on the Russians. He absolutely would have. It would have been absolutely catastrophic. However, Albert Einstein, though he wrote the letter, he gave him the information, basically put him on the right path to science of how this is going to work. Albert Einstein doesn't build the atomic bomb. They actually don't even let Albert Einstein work on the atomic bomb. Albert Einstein is not allowed to have any more contact or information or dealings with atomic weapons after this point, because Albert Einstein is a pacifist. It means he isn't going to fight. He actually didn't even like playing soldier and like army guys growing up because he was that much of a pacifist. They thought they put him on it. Number one, he's a German scientist. Maybe he'll sabotage it. And then another one says, what if he just sabotages it so that nobody can have this bomb? So Albert Einstein isn't allowed to work on this. And Albert Einstein's contribution is very important of like bringing awareness to it. But he doesn't build it. There are a bunch of very intelligent Americans that can be chosen to be in charge of this, especially after Albert Einstein and his genius basically put you on the right path of where you need to go. So America is going to pick this guy, J. Robert Oppenheimer. J. Robert Oppenheimer, his job is to oversee the creation of the atomic bomb. So after December 7th, 1941 happens and we declare war on everybody, we're going to focus immediately on Hitler. Because Japan, they're not trying to take us over. They're going back and doing their things. We'll deal with them later kind of mentality. The immediate situation is here in Europe with Hitler. So while everybody's motivating for that, J. Robert Oppenheimer basically gets unlimited funding to see if we can create the atomic bomb. Our motivating factor is the fact that we believe Hitler is getting this. So J. Robert Oppenheimer is in charge of this thing called the Manhattan Project. All right. So the Manhattan Project is named that because at Columbia University, which is in Manhattan, there is kind of the home base of the building of the atomic bomb. But these are all places all over the country in which the atomic bomb is like individual parts being put together. Basically, nobody knows that the atomic bomb is what they are working on. They're just getting a whole bunch of money to build like one little part. They don't know this part goes through. They have blueprint, build this part, and then ship it off. Everybody, like 600,000 people in America work on this, and nobody knows what they're building. They just know they're getting paid well, follow the blueprints, build it, and then ship it off to Columbia University, and J. Robert Oppenheimer's there like snapping it together. It really feels like there's about a 10% chance this is going to work. But just in case it does work, we want to get it before Hitler does. Hitler, we've learned after this, nobody knew this at the time, Hitler basically abandoned it for a variety of reasons. One, the amount of resources that they needed. He wasn't completely sure it would work. He wanted to spend his money at different things. So while we are building it, Hitler had given up on it, but we don't know that. We wouldn't know that until after the war is well over. So our entire motivation for creating the atomic bomb is to try to get it before Hitler so that if Hitler uses it, we have something else to. And again, we just know big bomb. There is no concept of what a bomb like this could do. It's never been used. It's all new science. All right, we're used to like gunpowder and things exploding. So the idea of what is this going to do, nobody knows what it is. And we'll come back to that obviously in a couple of lessons when the atomic bomb actually gets used in World War II. But the question here is, what is the primary motivation for America in creating the atomic bomb? Like, why did America feel so desperately needed that we had to create it? So answer that and pause me and we'll move on. All right, so America enters the fight here in World War II. Japan isn't trying to take over America. So we know we're going to deal with them. They came and wiped out our Navy at Pearl Harbor. They're on our list. The primary person to deal with is going to be Hitler and Mussolini here in Europe that are just wrecking shop all over the place. England is holding on by an absolute thread. So once we declare war, England's like, thank you. So our goal is to pack up and go over to England and set up shop and secure England and help them win the Battle of Britain, then deal with England or deal with Germany. What's interesting though is Hitler, and we talked about this in World War Germany then too. Hitler, like in Germany in World War I, commits very heavily to submarines. Now, submarines have gotten a lot more advanced since World War One. They also realize because they're slower and they're not as maneuverable against battleships that they have to go in groups. So groups of submarines would now go together, and they're called wolf packs. As soon as America decides we declare war on Hitler and Germany, instantaneously, America starts getting attacked on our own coast. Wilmington, North Carolina, almost immediately started getting attacked by German U-boats, these wolf packs. They were already here waiting for us. All right, so we try to take ships off to go get set up here in England. Our ships start getting sank immediately because Germany doesn't want us to be able to leave our coast and go over to Europe. He wants to finish off Britain and then proceed with his plan. So the reason this is really important here in world history is because you're going to see what America can do special. So America's always like, oh, we're the greatest at everything. Nah, statistically, that's not necessarily true. One of the things America really is the best at is, when you see it in World War I and World War II, in World War II, we can make more stuff than you can, and we can make it faster than you. America can mass produce stuff. As soon as we go to war, America can mass produce planes. We make more planes than anybody else. They can't do anything about it. We just mass produce them. Mass produce tanks. It's go time. America, let's go. We can mass produce weapons and artillery faster than anybody else. Why? Two big reasons. Number one, America has the natural resources a lot of other places don't. We have a large area. We have access to a lot of natural resources. We can make it. Number two, our workforce. All the men, and I'm simplifying, all the men in America just got drafted. They're in boot camp right now. They're going to go off to war. So who's going to mass produce all of these weapons? All the men that were in factories, they got drafted. They're off to war. Who's going to do it? Just like this picture, women. Women, and the term Rosie the Riveter is the term given to women at the time in World War II in America. Women flood into the factories to mass produce this equipment for the war effort, whether it's weapons here, whether it's heavy machinery, whether it's putting planes together. We can mass produce faster than anybody else. And you're probably like, okay, great, American mass produce. What does that have anything to do with submarines sinking our ships? This is what it has to do with it. This is a Liberty ship. That ship, we can build one in less than an hour in the United States. We can literally build this ship faster than Germany can build torpedoes. This is actually how we beat the German U-boats that are attacking us off the coast. We build these ships, we sell them right out of the harbor, and they get hit with the torpedo. And they slowly start to sink. Because on these ships, it's like one dude. He wakes up in the morning, he has to go to work, get on the ship, drive it out into the ocean, gets hit with the torpedo, slowly sinks, is going to get on his little dinghy, putter back to shore. Hey, here's another ship coming off, another Liberty ship. Look how massive these things are, and we can mass produce them. Gets on the new Liberty ship, they put like a gallon of gas in it. They know he ain't going far. Putter right out there, gets sunk again. We can literally make the ships faster than they can make torpedoes. All those submarines that were going to stop us from going to England, they all run out of torpedoes. Guess what they have to do? They have to go back home to Germany. We literally, and the reason this is so imperative is because when America shows up, we're not just using all this material and supplies in our mass production for ourselves. All the allies, basically anybody not named Japan, Italy, or Germany, we supply them with everything they need for this war effort. All right. We show up, we're Mr. Moneybags, we can produce things, we can make things, and we can supply everything. War comes down to who can have supplies. If you lose your supplies, the war is pretty much going to be over. And that strategy is going to play a big part here as we move forward. But Liberty ships are the perfect example at the start of this war that America, our pure supply lines, our ability to mass produce, is probably America's biggest contributor to the World War II effort. So the question here is, how were Liberty ships effective at helping defeat the wolf packs here at the start of the war? And also, like, what is that symbolic of? Like, what's America good at, and how is this going to help the war effort? How is this example here a larger example of how America is going to benefit the Allies by us getting involved? So pause me, answer that completely, and we'll move on. Now, Hitler is a complex person. I mean, you don't have to say anything. He's a complex person. A lot of negatives involved in that complexity as well. But Hitler's been winning a lot. Hitler is getting ready to make the stupid decision of World War II. In retrospect, good thing he did it. It's going to turn out bad for a lot of people at the time, but Hitler does something really dumb here, and this decision he's getting ready to make is going to be the reason that he loses World War II. Not saying if he doesn't make this decision, he loses some other way years later, but he's going to make a decision here that's going to fundamentally start a cascading effect of collapse of everything that he has built. And historians there's a lot of theories on why he makes this dumb decision. It doesn't make sense. Again, there's theories, and you can make an argument for a whole bunch of different reasons, but the fact is he does do this, and it doesn't really follow the way he had been doing things. All right? Now, the fact that he is currently having the Holocaust take place right now, which is taking away from his war effort, again, that's not logical, so you can't really assume Hitler's going to do things logically. All right. So, all the red area are places that Hitler has taken over. So by this point in the war, you can see that he's not taken over England, and with America showing up and setting up shop in England, we were able to prevent England from being taken over, which is great because America can kind of start setting up shop. He has spread down into North Africa. All right, supplies are really important in war. Germany kind of landlocked, and so there's only so many resources that you can get there in Europe, even after he takes over other stuff. Spreading down into North Africa, there's a lot of natural resources that helps him with his war machine. So that is why Hitler has spread down into North Africa. All right, so Hitler is getting ready to do. It's dumb. It doesn't make any sense for a guy who seems to have thought everything out. If you remember, who does Hitler hate more than anybody else on Earth? And you're like, oh, the Jews. Yeah, again, it's hard to rank who Hitler hates. You wouldn't be wrong if you said Jewish people. But Russia. Hates Russia and cannot wait to murder them. Instead of waiting to take over England, all right, and he could have just focused on England, taken over England, he decides, and this is the dumb thing, and nobody knows why, he is going to split his army in half right before America gets involved. All right? And he is going to take half of his army and invade Russia. So the reason this is questionable is, again, at this point in history, nobody has ever fought a war on two fronts at the same time and won. Hitler is choosing to start a war with Russia. Russia, the non-aggression pact, was just sitting there staying out of the whole thing. They weren't on the Allies. They weren't on the Axis powers, which is what the people in the tripartite pact were called, the Axis powers. He wasn't going to get involved, but when Hitler invades them, obviously Stalin is going to join the Allies. But Stalin would have just sat there. Why did Hitler, instead of defeating England, then taking his whole army and fighting Russia, he is going to go ahead and split his army in half and attack Russia, his great nemesis, with only half his military? Why? It's dumb. And there's a lot of questions in history on why would he do this. But Hitler does, and it catches Russia off guard. But their idea of blitzkrieg, where they attack the whole country at the same time, doesn't really work with Russia because Russia's so big. All right? So Hitler races in like the springtime into Russia to try to take it over, and is very quickly able to push any Russian defenses back and just won military victory after military victory. So at first, and this is called Operation Barbarossa, which is Hitler named it that, it looks like, okay, well, this is going to work and Hitler's going to be able to take over Russia. Well, the Russians get pushed back into their own country, all right, until they get to a city called Stalingrad. Stalingrad is not that crazily important of a city, but it is named after Stalin, who is the leader of Russia, and he says, "You will not lose my city." So Stalin, he just says, "We will not give up this." Like, again, there's not logic. He's like, "That city's named after me. You won't give it up." So this is when, instead of retreating, and what the Russians have done, and Russians and Germans have hated each other for a really long time. Germany invades Russia all the time. Germany loses like every time this happens, and it's the same way, and I don't really understand why people aren't figuring this out. I think every time this has happened throughout history, they're like, our technology has gotten more advanced to prevent the thing that's going to beat us from beating us, and it doesn't. So we're going to get to that in a second. So the Russians, when they have to retreat, instead of just running back further into their country, they set all their own stuff on fire as they run back into Russia. The reason they do that is they don't want any of these supplies to fall into the hands of the Germans. So the Germans, remember supply lines, that's the important part here. Germany has to continue bringing supply lines from Germany. So any of their food, clothing, equipment, fuel, ammunition, all that has to keep coming from Germany. The further you go into Russia, the further that you are getting away from Germany and the longer your supply lines get. All right? Because that's going to be a problem. When the Germans get to Stalingrad, all of a sudden they realize the entire Red Army, the entire Russian military shows up to defend Stalingrad, and vicious fighting takes place. Stalingrad, I mean, it looks like a war zone. Calls it is a war zone. I mean, stuff just gets blown up. This is a picture. It lasts for 6 months. This battle at Stalingrad. This was like New York City prior to the war. This is what's left by the end of the battle. All right, which is the last 6 months. Absolute devastation. All right. The Russians are losing a lot more troops than the very well-trained Germans do. But Stalin just keeps sending in human wave after human wave after human wave into Stalingrad. Why would he do this? Because Stalin's waiting on something. And it shows up every year in Russia. It's waiting on winter. Winter in Russia is no joke. The Germans had invaded in the spring. They were not prepared for winter. They thought they could take it over before winter got there. They lose every single time the same way as winter hits. All right? And you're like, well, they could just get a jacket or build a fire and not freeze to death. You're right. But the supply lines that are hundreds of miles away, all those trails, because while everybody wants to think they're all in here on tanks and all this other stuff, there's a lot of horses. This is the 1940s, all right? A lot of poor area, they're still using horse and wagon. You literally cannot get your supplies from Germany anymore. No more food. No more additional clothing, even though you could probably survive. Ammunition. Where are you going to get this from? And that is basically what happens, is their entire supply lines freeze. You can't get the material to the Germans, who are now basically trapped in Stalingrad, and they wait until they starve to death and they surrender. The Germans surrender, and half of Hitler's army is wiped out. And Stalin does not treat these troops very well. I believe it's something like only one out of some crazy number. You can probably look this up, and something like only 1 out of 25. 1 out of 25. All right, like 4% of the troops that left Germany to go on this campaign ever returned to Germany. All right, and a lot of them had got captured, and Stalin's like, nah, and do horrible, awful things to them, and then they die. Those two countries hate each other with a vicious passion, Russia and Germany. But Hitler just lost half his military. While this is taking place, and this is really important, so Stalin has joined the Allies, like, all right, let's be on your side. America has shown up with all our supplies and all our stuff, all nice and happy here in England, and we secure England in the Battle of Britain while Hitler is struggling here in Russia. Stalin begs America to go ahead and attack Hitler from France. Go ahead and attack him. That opens up a two-front war. This would force Hitler to pull back from Russia. America just says, nah, not ready for that yet. And we just do not help Russia out at all. Oh, let me not back up on that. And we do not help out Russia at all in the Battle of Stalingrad. And this Battle of Stalingrad, though Russia is going to win it, there's a lot of hostility towards America because we do not come in and help out Russia when they are begging for our help. So even at the end of the war, or end of this battle, Russia has won. There's hostility between Russia towards America because we clearly could have helped them out some, and we actively chose not to, and we had our own reasons for that. So even though we are allies in World War II from this point on, there is, from the beginning, tensions between Russia and the United States. That will just grow up to present day. Some of these stats here are absolutely baffling. The fact that the temperature ended up being negative 22 degrees in Stalingrad. The average lifespan of a soldier when they got to Stalingrad, 24 hours. 1 day. Average lifespan. Stalin was just grabbing drunk people from bars and throwing them on trains, shipping them to the front lines, giving them a gun with no bullets, and sending them into battle. Operation Human Wave. Russia loses 1.1 million soldiers in a single battle. To put that in perspective, America has lost 1 million soldiers in the history of our country in every war we've ever fought combined. Stalin lost this in a single battle. The numbers are just unbelievable. But Russia does win. Hitler, his military is cut in half. Hitler looks around and is like, ruh-roh. Like, not only is he no longer expanding, because he's not expanding into Britain, that's been stopped. He's not expanding into Russia anymore, that has been stopped. He is still trying to spread into North Africa, but he realizes this ain't good because doing numbers, he is now vastly outnumbered by the Allies after the Battle of Stalingrad. And it's a huge momentum shift. Now, Hitler's going to have to be defensive a lot more than being on offense here in World War II. So there are two questions here. The first question is, why was the Battle of Stalingrad such a huge momentum shift in World War II? All right. And then the other question is, why was Russia unhappy with America after Stalingrad, even though both countries were now on the same side? So take your time, answer those completely. And that's as far as we'll get today. See you guys tomorrow.